My name is Bill Suhr. Behind us are the Adirondacks. It's high ground, it's very good fruit growing ground because we want the cold air to settle in the spring and not affect the blossom. It's a good site to grow on, and by conserving the land we've committed to agriculture. There's 700 acres of land. That includes primarily apples, but there's also cherries, and nectarine, and peaches, summer plums, European plums, Asian and European pears. We know that it's hard for the consumer to appreciate too much diversity, but we have 150 or so varieties of apples. When we harvest the apple in September to November, the apple quickly gets moved into the cold storage. We harvest 7 million pounds of apples every year on a good year. And the fruit that has good storage capability gets put in a room, refrigerated, and we draw the oxygen from 21% down to 2.5%. The apple is breathing just like we are, so CO2 is being emitted. So it's cold, we're starving it of oxygen, and the CO2 it does exhale, we're monitoring to make sure those levels don't get too high. It's called controlled atmosphere. So the apples can then be tapped out of these rooms. 12 months of the year we're selling apples, and we transition from last year's crop in August. So there's some carryover fruit we're using for cider, but there's always people ordering last year's McIntosh while we're picking the next crop's Polareds. And they're preferring last year's fruit, and that's a compliment to the team here and how they're managing their fruit and how we're storing. So the apple then comes out of storage in these bins that range from 520 pounds to 1,000 pounds, and they go on a packing line or they get diverted right to the cider press. An apple going on the packing line would get sorted out, and some would go in a fresh fruit box. Some would get dropped into a bin that would then come back to sweet cider or hard cider. Some apples would be selected off, like Cortlands or Northern Spy, that have a blemish, and those would get sliced, and then the slices would go to our bakery. Certain apples would get pressed and then boiled down into syrup. So some apples get blended in with cider syrup and the maple syrup to make a product that's pretty unique. So the fruit that's packed or the juice that's bottled will often make it onto a delivery truck that's delivered within 2 hours of the farm. So someone would call in the morning to order, we would pack the fruit or press the cider, the next day they would receive their order. And these would be food co-ops, Hannaford Supermarket, hospitals, other CSAs. The fastest return is to get that apple picked fresh and sold like the day it was picked.
Thank you, I got those sides up now.
We're ecologically certified, and that helps us reduce our inputs and helps differentiate what we're offering to the consumer.
Eco-certification is acknowledging that if conventional is over here and organic is over here, that there's really something in between. So on this scale, and in this climate, which tends to be more susceptible to diseases and pests, it's really hard to grow 100% organically. We do have some certified land. We are taking a lot of steps to try to reduce spray, and it's never just a broadcast spray. It's only spraying where we need to. There's a lot of pheromone trapping. There's a lot of, disruption of mating cycles and all of that we try out. And then a lot of disease-resistant varieties as well. I love being in the Pick Your Own, so every week I'm out here scouting in our 10 acres of Pick Your Own, which is over 40 varieties of apples, so it means a lot of tasting. And then on the weekends, I'm up here as much as possible, just interacting with people. Can I help you folks find anything?
What do you recommend for an apple pie besides like a McIntosh?
So, have you tried to stop at Spitzenberg?
What is it?
Thomas Jefferson's favorite apple. Esopus Spitzenberg or
Preserving older varieties like Northern Spy, which can be eaten or baked, or a Cortland, which is not that old but is a versatile apple. We don't want people to forget about them.
I can send you with a map if you like.
In this case, we want to preserve the heirloom, unusual varieties, but we also want to be very progressive. Like the apples behind us are ambrosia, an apple that only recently was available for us to be able to plant in the first place. In some ways, this is a library, and we can share that library with others.
A lot of people like to come up and pick with their families. They're picking in our older trees, they're picking in our younger trees, so they notice the difference in how they're grown as well. Part of the Eco Apple certification is that not all of our apples are going to look absolutely perfect and beautiful. They're going to have blemishes on them, and so there is a place for all of those blemished apples. Some go into pie, some go into sweet cider, and many go into hard cider.
I mean, I think what sets us apart is, for the size that we are, we're one of the few places that really do grow the fruit and use only our own fruit. I mean, we even graft the trees in the nursery. Like, we have our own nursery, we plant them, we grow them, we harvest them, we press them, we blend it, we can it, we put it on trucks. So like pretty much everything. So we have a series of large tanks. They're about 6,000 gallons, and we do our larger fermentations in those. We also have a bunch of small IBC totes. So those are about 250 to 300 gallons, and we do our small specialty apple blends in those. So if it's filtered, that'll happen first, then it goes into the bright tank, we'll carbonate it, and then we can can it from there.
So it's just starting to bubble up, so all the use is just starting to work.
I think it's one of the things I love about cider making is all this chemistry and biology that interact. So it's part art, but it's also a lot of science. And I really like working at a place that is an orchard because a lot of the fun is getting the fruit off the trees. It's not just juice comes in and then you do what you can with it. This time of year I'm going out in the orchard to help determine when they get harvested. So one way to test the ripeness of apples is if you cut them in half and you put some iodine on it, the starch will turn black. But if there's just sugar, it won't turn black. And that tells you how far it is from being completely ripe. Apples are nice that there's a lot of just really simple tests you can tell. Like I showed you floating that hydrometer in the fermenting cider that tells you how much sugar is left. You think you need complex scientific equipment. And certainly there are complex instruments that will do all that for you, but you don't need them. You can do it just with really basic stuff. So I mean, it's a stretch to even call it a lab, but you know, we have a sink and we have a bunch of different graduated cylinders, and blending is probably one of the most fun things. So we'll taste them individually and then we'll try different ratios, or if we're using like adjunct flavors like lemon peel or something, you know, we'll make little tea bags, we'll soak those in it for a couple days, we'll taste it till we think it's ready, and then we'll try to extrapolate that recipe from like a mason jar size to 1,000 gallon size and hope it kind of works out.
We're trying to limit how much we're reliant on others for. That diversification comes potentially some inefficiencies and some challenges to remain the best of the best at each product. That is forever a challenge for us, right? To aspire to be the ultimate in each, when usually businesses focus on just one of those entities, just growing, or just marketing the fresh fruit, or just making hard cider that's bought in. There is an award that I'm very proud of that we've fetched multiple times called the Good Food Awards. They're not just judging the flavor. They're looking at our solar panels, how our labor is housed, how we treat our labor, how we manage our fruit. And so that makes my heart pitter-patter, because they're embracing everything we do. And if we're not excelling at those, then we can look at how to improve up and beyond just the end flavor, which of course is important when they're tasting our cider. I started with no debt. And as we've grown in size, debt has increased, and that weighs on me because that's limiting some of our nimbleness moving forward. And I think about that as I hope my children want to take on the business. By the way, they're 11, my daughter Rosa, and my son is 14. His name is Rupert. So how does this remain exciting for them if they have that burden? And agriculture is brutal. And I always feel like the farmer is often on the low end of the totem pole. I think this interview is acknowledging, well, it's asking questions of the farmer, and I'm communicating that it's great to be able to communicate, because not everyone wants to hear or is interested, but we've kept our prices the same for 3 years. We're just scared to raise them with all the glut of fruit on the market. But there I also feel a little vulnerable without the diversification, which I think has been one of our keys to remaining in business. But I want to do more than remain in business. And I don't want to do it at the cost of the land or at the cost of the employee. We're not looking to take those shortcuts. By the way, this place is very busy on the weekends, and our orchard up the road, Douglas, remains very busy. That's great. But that's a couple weekends in September, and when you're a wholesale business and you're stockpiling your whole year's income in a couple of months, and you only get to try it again a year from then, the apple business is very risky. So that's not news to you, but it's good to remember that that's one of the vulnerabilities we have beyond the weather and market prices and tariffs and government policies. Our main power need is refrigeration. Well, I guess I'm proud that 60% of our power is coming from the heat of the sun. We have enough solar panels, all earth renewables installed, 2 sets of solar tractors, some rooftop fixed solar panels on the main building. At the moment, we don't own those facilities, but we are owners of the renewable energy, and that's net metered, and then we can draw it back. The deliveries I made this morning went to schools in Colchester, and then to Hannaford's and to food co-ops. And those food co-ops in particular feel like we're very closely aligned with, taking our unusual apples, promoting them, understanding if we have hail and what that blemished fruit looks like, even though it's not a problem, meaning fruit that might not be acceptable on a supermarket level, understandably, can be communicated directly to the consumer.
I love seeing families just stay for hours. And then while they're here, they can have a picnic here, or they can enjoy our cider garden down below. So our cider garden, it features a lot of fun local foods, often our own soups and bread, and also our hard ciders. And so people can order a flight of cider and walk out to the cider garden. My crew and I plant a lot of flowers around there, a lot of things that will attract pollinators. And today we've got a local musician down there. And I love this time of year. It is a rare thing to see families out spending time together, outdoors, talking about food and thinking about food and meals together and sharing time together. There's often no screens involved. It's kind of a rare, beautiful glimpse of our culture.
People are welcome to come to the main farm, to the cider garden, and have food, be outside picking a crop, have food, have a drink. Just getting folks to remember where their food's coming from is more and more appreciated by those that come here, because let's face it, we don't know where a lot of our food is coming from in the supermarket. And for kids to run around here and learn how to pick an apple, or however you can slow down and appreciate the food that you're eating, and that also is rewarding to us.